Good morning. I'm Victoria Kuhn. I'm the Acting Commissioner with the New Jersey Department of Corrections. I would like to welcome you all this morning. Thank you for joining us. This was with regard to a status update for Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. Truthfully, we're sincerely grateful for your time and this opportunity this morning. As you may be aware, in August of 2021, the New Jersey Department of Corrections entered into a settlement agreement that appoints a federal monitor, provides specific requirements for compliance in a number of areas impacting those at Edna, and enables today's public meeting. We feel fortunate to report on the progress at Edna, to provide insight into the initiatives that have launched and continue to be launched at Edna. We hope that you leave this morning with a better understanding of the vision for Edna, who I am, who we are as a team, where we currently are with all things Edna, and where we're going. I firmly believe that this is a time for new beginnings, both with Edna and department-wide. We recognize that everyone has a role to play in mission-critical prison reform, including all of you that are joining us this morning. We appreciate your role in these efforts. I very much want to acknowledge the dedicated team that's joining us this morning. I'm proud to call these individuals teammates. We are a new team. We are a unique team. And this team is revolutionizing the way corrections is done in New Jersey to establish a culture that better supports those in our care and reinvests in our staff. And just very briefly in terms of introduction, we have Assistant Commissioner Willie Bonds joining us this morning. AC Bonds oversees the Division of Operations. He has significant operations experience. He has worked his way up through the ranks. He is progressive, he is thoughtful. Next to Assistant Commissioner Bonds, we have Assistant Commissioner Melinda Haley. AC Haley is the Assistant Commissioner, our Legal Services. She also chairs our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I'm going to skip the next one just for a second. We have also Dr. Darcella Sessoms joining us this morning. Dr. Sessoms is the Assistant Commissioner of the Division of Programs and Reintegration. She is, and I have said this many times before, an innovator, a reintegration expert. She is the mind behind the New Jersey LEAD reintegration grants that you'll hear more about today. I only skipped Assistant Commissioner Kelly Daniels for a second because I wanted to circle back. Assistant Commissioner Kelly Daniels is one of the newest members of our team. She has been with us for slightly over a month at this time. This is a new position for the Department of Corrections. We have modified the structure of the New Jersey Department of Corrections Special Investigation Division. We previously had a chief overseeing the division. We now have an assistant commissioner. Kelly is an attorney. She's a prosecutor or was a prosecutor. She brings a wealth of corrections experience to the department. She was the chief of the Sex Assault Bureau of the Hunterdon County Prosecutor's Office. She directly prosecuted staff members accused of criminal sexual conduct from Edna. And she has significant Prison Rape Elimination Act experience. Kelly is going to be overseeing the Special Investigations Division. She's going to have a particular focus on the establishment of the Special Victims Unit. This is a very new unit in the Department of Corrections that's being established now. It's going to be dedicated to the investigation of allegations of sexual contact and all things PREA. This unit's going to have specialized training, and we welcome Kelly to this team. We also have Shirley Moore-Smeal with the Moss Group joining us this morning. The Department of Corrections is fortunate to have secured the expertise of the Moss Group. The Moss Group, if you are not already aware, is a well-established leader in prison reform. And Ms. Moore-Smeal, she is a true expert in this field. Also joining us this morning, Jane Parnell. Ms. Parnell is the federal monitor assigned to this case. She is well respected. She is well established in this field, and you will have an opportunity to hear from Ms. Parnell this morning. We also have Assistant Commissioner Helena Tomei joining us this morning. Ms. Tomei is also a newer member of the team. I believe it's 1 year this spring. Assistant Commissioner Tomei will have been with us Assistant Commissioner Tomei is the Assistant Commissioner of Women's Services. This is all things Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. She has brought innovative new ideas to the department and has implemented them. You're going to be hearing more from AC Tomei this morning as well. And last but certainly not least is Erica Stem. Ms. Stem is the administrator at Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. She is there with those that are confined to Edna every day. She is there with the staff, and she is truly invested in the positive changes that are taking place. You're going to hear from Ms. Stem this morning as well. And then there's me. I've been asked many times what makes me different than those that have come before me. So just a little bit about me, who I am. After graduating law school, I started with the state in 1996. I started as a prosecutor. Thereafter, I was a deputy attorney general and an assistant section chief in the attorney general's office. Law enforcement was my client, including the New Jersey Department of Corrections. I worked on matters involving Megan's Law, sexually violent predators, community supervision for life, and matters that involved Edna Mahan Correctional Facility. I've worked with the Department of Corrections since 2007. I was previously the director of the Equal Employment Division. I've served as the director of labor relations, and I am confident that all of these experiences have led me to this position and to the responsibilities that go with it. And I know that I've said to many of you before, I do not take those responsibilities lightly. Over the years, I too have complained about conditions at Edna. I did not have the authority at that time to make changes, but now I do. And this team does. And we are making those changes. It is time for new beginnings. Together, we're making mission critical changes. We are at the facility. We are not operating from behind a desk. We do not operate in silos. We are meeting regularly with those incarcerated at Edna. This is not a one and done visit. And we meet with the staff. All of their voices count. They are invested. They are savvy. They are smart. And we secure their input in an effort to advance new initiatives. And you're going to hear this morning the progress that we are making and next steps. A good portion of the innovations and the initiatives and change has come with building community, both within the facility and with outside stakeholders and advocates, educators, the medical community, former offenders, and with a number of you that are joining us this morning. We're thankful for our community partners, our reentry organizations, the Senate, the Assembly, the Murphy administration. Your voices count. We need to hear from you. We welcome your input. This is how change is going to happen. Building community and engaging community are an essential component to lifting the veil of secrecy that has hung over this department and Edna for far too long. Building community brings important resources to those housed at Edna. It raises new ideas. It brings to our attention issues that we may not have otherwise been aware, and is a critical component of reimagining what the experience for those at Edna should be. Building community also means reimagining the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility Board of Trustees. We recently announced the new members of the board. The board is comprised of strong and professional women, including advocates for women's rights, formerly incarcerated, advocates for diversity, advocates for transgender offenders, educators, physicians. This board is unique and poised to partner in the positive changes taking place. We are excited to hear their voices. I know you're here this morning, you want to hear specifics. The number one question that I am consistently asked regarding Edna is, what is the status of the new facility? When will Edna be closed? I can assure you, as I look around the table, we all want the facility to close. It is time to start a new beginning for those housed at Edna, but we also want to do it right, and that is going to take a bit of time. In terms of current status, the state has subcontracted with CGL Steve Carter. The consultant is a national and international leader in justice facilities and female facilities. They have assisted a number of US states with the development and advancing of female facilities. And I can tell you that the consultant is very forward thinking. CGL was issued a subcontract in late November of 2021, and 3 days later was with us in the state of New Jersey and has been with us ever since. There are two key phases of the initial project. One is review of available property, starting with NJDOC properties. And the second are what the consultant calls visioning sessions. And these are with various stakeholders to determine the needs for the next facilities. With regard to the reviewing of available property, that piece is complete. The consultant has toured a few options. They are all centrally located. They would enable for easier visits for those, currently housed at Edna, and enable more staffing options. With regard to the visioning session piece, that piece is partially completed. The visioning sessions have been completed for all NJDOC staff members, with consultant having met with all facets of the NJDOC, from executive and senior staff to custody, medical, social services, education, religious services, mental health, maintenance, food service. The list goes on. All voices count when we are envisioning what the next facility and experience should look like. In terms of next steps, the visioning sessions are continuing with additional folks that are outside of the department, as well as those still in. The visioning and sessions include those that are currently incarcerated at Edna, but also include those formerly incarcerated, their families, advocates, reentry organizations, legal organizations. We anticipate these meetings to continue through mid-March. In terms of overall timeframe, we're anticipating both short-term and long-term recommendations to be made by the consultant by late March. We're excited by the prospect of potentially having some short-term solutions in place by later this year, with longer-term goals being completed thereafter. I do want to stress, though, that facility relocation is just a piece of reimagining what the experience should be for those housed at Edna. There are a significant number of innovations and improvements that have been established in the last 9 months because it's the right thing to do, because we believe in investing in the betterment of those that are incarcerated at Edna and reinvesting in our staff. And equally important is because we're moving forward into a new beginning. I just want to talk about a couple of specifics. There are a number of essential operations changes that have also occurred within the last 9 months. You're going to hear more about them from the panel this morning, but I would like to highlight 3. 1, body-worn cameras. This is critical, not just at Edna, but department-wide. The body-worn cameras have been established and are fully functional at Edna. At this time, all custody staff who have contact with the population at Edna are outfitted with body-worn camera. And as you can imagine, the BWC provide the ability to view firsthand the interactions. In addition to the body-worn camera, the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility camera project, so not the body-worns, but those that are affixed. That project has been completed. It became functional on December 1st of 2021. At the present time, there are 355 cameras that are online that provide approximately 700 views. And coupled with the body-worn camera, this provides a tremendous opportunity to enhance the safety and the security at Edna. And then I'd like to mention video visits. Video visits were established at Edna in June of 2021. This is really to enable those that are housed at Edna an opportunity to video visit with loved ones. Given the location of the facility, visiting is challenging. All things COVID makes visiting challenging. And the video visits enable a greater opportunity for those housed at Edna to connect with their loved ones. I thank you again for joining us this morning. You're here this morning to hear more specifics. I look forward to you hearing from the team that is joining us this morning. We look forward to hearing your comments and your questions this morning. And at this time, I am happy to introduce Jane Parnell.
Good morning. My name is Jane Parnell, and I am the federal monitor for the settlement agreement. A little bit about me. I have 35 years of experience with the Department of Corrections in Washington State. I currently live in Washington State. Those 35 years, I started as a correctional officer. I left the prison division and went to Community Corrections Division, which is our probation and parole. I worked in headquarters, and then I was lucky enough to come back to prisons and find my passion working with women. I worked as associate superintendent, which is our word for warden, for 5 years with the women at the Washington Correction Center for Women. And then I was promoted to the superintendent and worked there another 6 years. Truly my very, very favorite part of my career was working those years in the women's prison. During that time, you might be interested to know that our facility actually was under a settlement agreement as well. From 2010 until 2013, we had a state settlement agreement as a result of staff sexual misconduct with the incarcerated women. So I've lived the experience from the administrator's point of view, and I will say that our facility was better for that experience. It was a safer facility for the women who lived there, and it was a safer experience for the staff who work there. So as painful as this experience might be for you, Administrator Stem, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I can attest to that. I retired in 2015 and then became a corrections consultant. I actually was lucky enough to work with the Moss Group, and I echo what Commissioner Kuhn says, that there was no better experience throughout the United States than those people who work for the Moss Group. I also worked for the National Institute of Corrections and some universities who had contracts with Department of Justice. So let me talk a little bit just about the guidelines. Not only am I the federal monitor for this whole 3 years, but I'm the monitor for this 90-minute session today. So let me talk about the guidelines if I can. For the first 60 minutes, as Commissioner said, you will have the speakers, not all of us, don't worry about that, not all of us up here, but some of the speakers will give you updates about specific to the settlement agreement. The last 30 minutes we've held for your questions, your comments, and also your suggestions. What we would ask is that you hold those questions, comments, and suggestions until the last 30 minutes, with the exception of the chat function. If you hear a speaker say something and you want to make sure you capture it, you can chat it to us, and we have somebody who will be monitoring that chat. So, and the other thing we want to remind you is that this session is being recorded. Let's talk just for a quick minute about how we got to the settlement agreement, if you will, please. There was an investigation conducted jointly by the Civil Rights Division and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of New Jersey. And the Department of Justice found reasonable cause to believe that the conditions at Edna Mahan violated the 8th Amendment. And that specifically, the Department of Justice concluded that Edna Mahan failed to protect prisoners from sexual abuse by the facility staff. So the settlement agreement was a 3-year agreement entered into by the Department of Justice and the New Jersey Department of Corrections, approved by the federal court. And it basically is agreeing to take specific actions in order to make the facility sexually safer for the incarcerated persons who live there, and again, safer for the staff who work there. I personally am very excited to be part of this team. I've worked with both, I don't even want to say sides, with all people invested in making this change. And I can say I've not ever worked with a more cooperative group of people, that everybody truly has the same goal. And I echo Commissioner's words to that effect. In terms of my role in the settlement agreement, my job is to write a report to the court every 6 months and let the court know how the Department of Corrections and Edna Mahan are doing and abiding by the conditions. I tell people sometimes it's just a glorified probation officer from my years, many years ago, when I had people under my supervision and they had conditions that the court had set for them, and I would write a report to the court and let them know how that particular probationer was doing. Think about that now in terms of just the settlement agreement. Again, every 6 months, just letting the court know. We conducted, and when I say we had the Department of Justice and myself and the Department of Corrections, we all conducted a baseline visit last October. So we got to know the facility. We kind of got a baseline of what was going on. We certainly heard the problems. There was, quite honestly, even by October, there was some efforts being taken and some changes that we had made. We just finished yesterday the first compliance report, or I'm sorry, the first compliance visit. The reporting period is every 6 months. The settlement agreement was signed August 24th of 2021. And so Thursday, February 24th, 2022 was the first 6 months. And we were here last Monday, so right after the first reporting period. We spent all week, all the last 4 days touring the facility, talking to the incarcerated persons at the facility, looking at the policies, looking at the procedures, talking to administrators, and then in my perception, talking to, the most important was getting out, talking to those persons who are incarcerated and talking to the staff. I remember in my administrator role, I could sign all kinds of things and write all kinds of policies, but it really was what happened from here down to what was happening on the ground. And that's where we spent most of our time this week. I will say to you all the same thing that we told the administrators at Edna Mahan, and we told the commissioner and many of the people up here, that we saw a lot of progress. You're going to hear some of that progress. Please know that there's still some roads to take. This is, it will take time to turn and make the kind of cultural changes, the lasting cultural changes that need to be made. I will be honest with you when I say that the incarcerated persons, they acknowledged that there were changes. They were happy to see those changes. Their biggest fear to us was, will those changes last? And so we want to make sure that the types of changes that are going to happen will go beyond the settlement agreement. I think that's it. I haven't even been given my 2-minute warning yet, but I can certainly yield my time to other people. Again, I will be back the last 30 minutes to monitor. If you, okay, there I have my 2-minute warning. All right. I will be back the last 30 minutes to monitor those questions and those in-person questions or those chat questions. And I look forward to hearing from you then.
Morning. And thank you, Commissioner, for extending a seat at the table at this very important session today. As Commissioner Kuhn has indicated, I am Dr. Sessoms. I am one of the assistant commissioners here at the New Jersey Department of Corrections, but I am also a clinician licensed in New Jersey and Pennsylvania by trade as well. Due to the brevity of time, I'm going to highlight a few of the new initiatives that we are doing at Edna Mahan. Unfortunately, I cannot highlight them all, but I look forward to questions in the chat. First, I want to talk about our trauma initiatives. In January of 2022, we experienced the launch of a new program called Releasing Trauma and Embracing Faith, or as we call it, Releasing. Releasing is a gender-informed program culturally designed to assist participants with the techniques they need to activate various pathways to healing. Participants draw upon foundational aspects of culture, education, spirituality, all to enhance their psychological and emotional healing in order to improve their daily functioning and to achieve a deeper level of self-awareness. The goal of this critical work is to support the participants with creating a new sense of identity, of belonging, purpose, value, and to heal from the multiple forms of trauma, such as incest, childhood molestation, domestic abuse, and sexual assault, while also bringing into the discussion the intersectionality of other forms of debilitating trauma, such as poverty and racialized trauma. Why has this critical work been so sought after by the women at Edna Mahan, and why has it been so well received? Our program participants do not feel the need to persuade our trained facilitators to believe their stories about the damage that the trauma has caused. Through the lens of their own experiences, the participants crawl through pain, leaving behind a trail of tears that leads them to a place of liberation. Those involved in learning, they learn how to rise above injury and to do the work that needs to be done because they understand that if they deny their pain, they are only delaying their healing. We also are doing additional trauma work that is very specific to sexual abuse in our HEART program. HEART stands for Healing and Empowering Those Overcoming Abuse, Rape, and Trauma. HEART is a trauma recovery program designed to educate and to empower those who experience post-traumatic stress as a result of sexual assault and abuse. It provides education about sexual abuse and how one's current behaviors can also be traced back to that abuse. The goal of HEARTS is also to empower participants to take control of their own lives after the abuse. And finally, in our trauma series, when the participants have done the work on themselves and when they feel they are now ready to move forward and take a look at the hurt and harm they've caused to others, we encourage them to take our focus on the victim group. FOV provides each participant the opportunity to take responsibility and to examine the impact of their crime and the trauma they have caused to their victims of crime. And the last way we are deconstructing the effects of trauma is through our second annual Soul Sisters Conference, which will be April 24th and May 4th. This all-day event brings 8 dynamic and powerful speakers and authors from the tri-state area to converge on Edna Mahan Correctional Facility to impart how healing can be found through meditation, relaxation, and spirituality. This year's theme is titled, Girl, You Can Get On Up, which is a metaphor basically that says, my beloved friend, you can overcome. The women at Edna Mahan have been asking me every time they see me, when is this conference going to come back? Because they were robbed of it in 2020 and 2021 due to COVID. So we are excited to see the conference come back. I've talked a lot about the work people do on the inside to strengthen their ability to face life on life terms, but then we open the door and we say goodbye to them, never to know how they are doing, and regrettably, sometimes only finding out if and when they come back to Edna. This is not our ideal model of what success should look like. Gratefully, we have been provided funds that are now earmarked to go to community-based agencies to do reentry work under a new initiative, as mentioned by the commissioner, called NJ Lead. This was the missing link, having the supportive services after one leaves Edna Mahan facility. While several agencies submitted applications and were funded, I will highlight those that were selected and very clear that all of their services will be earmarked for women leaving Edna Mahan. We have Serving the North Jersey Area, Communities Incorporation, CEO Pastor Pamela Jones. And in South Jersey, Women Over Incarcerated, Executive Director Denise Dixon. And also in South Jersey, the Women's Center. You can learn more about them on their respective websites and social media platforms. Their grant awards were announced 2 weeks ago, and they should be ready to receive referrals from Edna Mahan by April 1st, if not sooner. In addition to the DOC-funded initiatives, we also have signed memorandums of understanding with community-based agencies for post-release services. Some of the agencies that we have partnered with are Volunteers of America, Delaware Valley. And in a few minutes, my colleague, AC Tomei, will speak about a special initiative regarding post-release healthcare services for women that DOC is partnering with the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. I realize I only have a few moments left, but I would like to highlight 2 more initiatives. We are expanding our coursework and educational services. Because we know there should be no glass ceiling in any field, the women of Edna Mahan have expanded their interest in being their own boss. They have gravitated to some of the additional vocational trainings that we have added that can lead to self-employment in areas of building and trades, horticulture, forklift training, and OSHA 30 construction safety. We have also conducted a survey of the entire campus on their vocational interests, and we look forward to bringing those top requested workshops in the spring. Now, on the other hand, some have opted to pursue an academic path. With our NJ STEP partners, currently we have a record of 39 people enrolled in an associate's degree program through the Raritan Valley Community College. And we also have 3 people who are currently enrolled in the Bachelor Degree of Justice Studies program with Rutgers University, the Newark campus. And lastly, if I might mention, after meeting with the paralegals, it became abundantly clear that in the Max compound, there was a need for an expansion of the law library. Soon, Edna will open a small law library in the North compound. This will allow for more access for those who are housed in the Max compound, which is often used more frequently than grounds. The women are fully engaged and excited, having already painted the location, and they have been instrumental in creating a cozy area for them to conduct their legal research. Also, as a result of their advocacy, the department has increased and upgraded its subscription to LexisNexis for all facilities for access to more up-to-date and current research information. If I had to denote one setback, that setback would be the great limitations that COVID has placed on us. But we are so looking forward to moving ahead in the spring and implementing everything that we've already begun and adding even more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. As stated, my name is Elena Tomei. In May, I was brought to the Department of Corrections as the Assistant Commissioner of Women's Services. For the last 2 decades, I have been dedicated to promoting human dignity for all, regardless of life circumstances. Prior to joining the department, I was employed in the private nonprofit sector and oversaw both residential and non-residential programs serving survivors of domestic violence and sexual abuse, reentry treatment and work release programs for individual on parole, homeless, chronically ill, underserved, and incarcerated women and men, providing trauma-informed and gender-responsive services. In my short time at the department, I have been welcomed and inspired by this group of leaders headed by Acting Commissioner Victoria Kuhn, the administration, custody, and civilian staff at Edna Mahan. Incarcerated women have disproportionately higher rates of being primary caregivers for young children, coming from single-parent homes, experiencing low education attainment, being survivors of multiple forms of abuse and victimization, and others. Life experiences such as these are the root cause of trauma. Repeated exposure to traumatic life experiences, which are interconnected with gender, impact brain development, and may result in emotional regulation issues. We recognize this, and we are making strides to promoting a trauma and gender-informed responsive approach for the incarcerated people in our care through enhanced training and daily practice. I've been grappling on how to put into context what has been done these past 6 months as we navigate our way through this work. Sharing our vision, our accomplishments, and the now, while not minimizing the history. We recognize the issues are deep, and it is a difficult process dealing with the multiple manifestations of history. Our work, the work of this team, is just beginning. We are nowhere near the finish line, and it is not our purpose or our vision to paper over it or offer superficial band-aids for cuts. So in terms of events directly related to our settlement agreement, in addition to what has already been discussed, I'd like to add that the people you see here today, along with those who are not here, and all of the staff at Edna Mahan are dedicated to work as a team with the United States Department of Justice and our federal monitor, Jean Purnell, to ensure that we comply with the many provisions of the settlement agreement. In my current capacity, I am the agreement coordinator to coordinate compliance, in addition to serving as a point of contact for the Department of Justice and our monitor. I also serve as a resource for any questions or concerns staff or incarcerated individuals may have regarding agreement requirements. And as someone who is physically present at Edna Mahan multiple times a week, that availability and proximity allows for us to continue to ensure that everyone is well informed. In September, we developed a 3-year implementation plan. This plan is a live and a fluid document. It serves to guide the timely performance and tracking of enhancements, accomplishments, and setbacks in areas that include staffing, supervision of incarcerated individuals, training, physical plant, policy and procedure, data collection, camera management, and investigations. While the deadlines to provide compliance evidence to the Department of Justice and the monitor are set, this plan has been and will continue to be a guide on how we at the department and Edna Mahan communicate and bring everyone together, not only to fulfill our obligations, but our department's vision. Semi-annual status reports are provided by the department to the Department of Justice and our federal monitor. And as she has indicated, we just submitted our first. So in that report, we share some of these accomplishments and what has happened in the past 6 months. Some of the things that we shared in February, we selected an individual who will be stationed full-time at Edna Mahan to work as our PREA compliance manager. Not only will this person be responsible to ensure Edna Mahan is compliant with federal PREA standards, which are written to protect, detect, respond to sexual abuse and sexual harassment, and for providing sexual safety for the population at Edna Mahan. This person's sole focus will be to implement institutional PREA policies and trainings, monitor retaliation, enhance support services, conduct facility audits, and provide support as needed to the population and the staff. We're looking forward to bringing this person on board shortly. Some other changes outside of our settlement agreement requirements which have occurred, and I'd like to highlight are, we have always offered feminine hygiene products to the population of Edna. That's not new. But recently, we've upgraded the quality of the items that are provided, as well as the location that, where the items are located. They're now in the housing units to ensure that we're providing unlimited access. Under no circumstances should a woman have to request, barter, or wait to receive any of these items. A survey to gauge interest in potential activities resulted in the population requesting structured incentive activities. The proposal submitted by incarcerated representatives was to recognize and motivate those residing at Edna Mahan to continue demonstrating safe and pro-social behavior. The requests included monthly ice cream social gathering, monthly prize draw games, and the ability to enter into an honors dorm. The honors dorm has been a tremendous success and resulted in both custody due to our direct supervision model and incarcerated individuals working together to identify criteria and incentives. So all of these requests that stemmed from this survey were approved. They are applicable to individuals who've met the pre-designated charge-free criteria. All activities have been very well received. And although simple, these small gestures have sent a powerful message through promoting positive, creative outlets and respecting the hard work that the residents of Edna Mahan are doing. We would like to also, and also the staff respecting that, and also staff who would like to see the population succeed, as well as building professional rapport so that the population feels safe and know that they're being heard. So since August, we created an incarcerated person advisory board. This was a pilot program. We weren't sure what was going to come out of this, and we created that in the Max compound. The individuals who were selected are charge-free leaders in their respective housing units. Most were voted on by their peers to be representatives for the population. As a direct result from these meetings, we have added or switched out items to our commissary offerings. We created and developed recreational clubs, activities, training opportunities. We brainstormed speakers that they would like to invite to the facility for presentations. During these meetings, we also heard a lot of anxiety that so many were feeling when we discussed the potential temporary move of one of our buildings while the building is under repair. We heard this clearly, and because of this, we transported the folks over to the proposed location and helped decrease that stress. We're currently reviewing the handbook, engaging in idea sharing of potential revisions, and this advisory group pilot has been so successful in demonstrating our commitment to transparency that we have expanded it to the grounds unit. They also enjoy and look forward to monthly visits from our acting commissioner. So as you've heard, we've enhanced our vocational education, social service offerings to support rehabilitation and reentry. Additions include new vocational programs and partnerships with service providers, such as New Jersey Reentry Corporation and Communities in Cooperation to provide reentry services and programs, including the Health Navigator program, which connects women to community medical, mental health, and behavioral health practitioners. Once they are released from the system, they will have follow-up and reassessment of medical needs long after they've transitioned back into the community. We have encountered some setbacks along the way. Due to COVID uptick at the end of 2021 and the first 2 months of 2022, we've had to push back the anticipated January launch of the Edna Mahan Empowering Women Speaker Series, where we will bring speakers to the facility to meet with the residents in an effort to tell their stories, offer guidance and inspiration. Some of our planned speakers will include LGBTQI+ and social justice advocates, legislators, entrepreneurs, physicians, and more. Due to the setback, we're looking to start this exciting series this month. We have, I just received my warning, we have crossed some very important thresholds. Looking beneath the surface and reinforce the very basic fact that incarcerated people are members of our community who are temporarily displaced and are worthy. I'll close by saying thank you for your time, for your interest, and we hope to create more positive, transparent engagement. I would now like to pass it on to Administrator Erica Stem. Hello and good morning. My name is Erica Stem, the Administrator at Edna Mahan. Just a little bit about myself. I have 18 years in the department and with parole. I've had 7 years of experience in administration itself. I've been to 6 prisons and some of them twice and 3 times. I started out my career as an intern at Edna Mahan at 20 years old. And to circle back to Edna as the administrator, it's a very proud moment to be upstage with all of these bosses I have here. So this part of my life has, I think, been destined for this time right now to be a part of this change, and to be a leader for the population, but also for staff. We are making positive moves throughout the whole institution, not to exclude the staff as well. One of those changes is training culture, and how we do that would be the training for everyone. We have a comprehensive orientation on PREA, and that entails for the inmate population. Within 30 days of intake, we usually do it within 14. The incarcerated people shall be informed on the following items with PREA: the right to be free from sexual abuse and verbal abuse. They will be knowledgeable in zero tolerance policy, all definitions regarding sexual abuse and sexual harassment. They'll be knowledgeable on how to report the incidents and how to be in contact with the Ombudsman's office, SID, and anonymous support systems that they have that are available to them. They also have the way to have a limited English proficiency if there is someone that we have that is from a different language or needs sign language. We are available to give that to them. Also, too, we give the training to staff. We have been given over 406 staff members retraining on PREA, which goes gender-informed practices, the zero tolerance, incarcerated people right to be free from sexual abuse and sexual harassment, how to respond to allegations, and what, if any, signs of abuse. We give them that training, and we also give a thorough training to our facilitators for the comprehensive orientation that we give to inmates. And they have been trained on the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility and New Jersey Department of Corrections policies and procedures related to sexual abuse and sexual harassment, PREA standards and terms of the settlement agreement. I wanted to thank everyone on this board who has given me much support and the strength to do what we're doing. It's been hard work throughout this, but it is very rewarding. And thank you all for the leadership. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Shirley Morse-Neal, and I am a senior consultant with the Moss Group. And we are going to hear from our CEO, Anna Dora, known as Andy Moss, before I give my remarks. Maybe we'll close with those remarks. That's what we'll do. We'll give IT a moment to get that together. But I am a senior consultant with the Moss Group and also the project director for the work that we were doing with the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women. Prior to joining the Moss Group, I worked for the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections for 32 years and retired as the second in command or as the executive deputy secretary. And as part of my corrections journey, I was the deputy superintendent as well as the superintendent, or what New Jersey refers to as the administrator of our largest female facility, SCI Muncie, which was also our diagnostic and classification facility and maximum security. The Moss Group itself is a Washington, DC based certified women-owned business in criminal justice and public safety consulting firm dedicated to helping state, local, federal, and private organizations achieve organizational excellence. And one of the reasons why I came to work with the Moss Group was because I worked with them as the executive deputy secretary for Pennsylvania and was able to see firsthand the quality of work that was done, the commitment to change, and the commitment to excellence in making sure that change was occurring, and follow up as necessary to make sure that any adjustments that needed to be made or additional training was provided. The New Jersey Department of Corrections has partnered with the Moss Group to develop and implement policies, procedures, and protocols that align with the settlement agreement. There are basically 7 strategies that we are working on and that are based on correctional best practices. These strategies include strategic planning for women's services, policy review and guidance, specialized PREA training and training for staff trainers, staffing analysis, gender responsive classification review, risk management assistance, and litigation support, training, and technical assistance. And to date, we have accomplished the following. We have met with the administrative staff, with advocates, and conducted focus groups with both the staff and the female population. We've offered training on inclusion and understanding, promoting safety within our facility to all staff. We have prepared gender responsive training curriculum that is being provided to all staff, and that training actually began on March 1st of 2022. I had opportunity to be at the facility yesterday to witness that training firsthand and to see the interaction with the staff who are participating in that training. We have identified subject matter experts to provide investigations training to staff. And these are the staff who will be conducting investigations into sexual misconduct as well as other misconduct. And important to note is that the training was developed in conjunction with the New Jersey Department of Corrections staff to ensure that it was tailored to the needs of the department. We had an off-site executive leadership session to focus on team building. We've conducted policy reviews that have and will be ongoing. And we've worked together with the central office and facility staff to develop a model staffing plan for PREA compliance that will be used throughout the agency. We've identified leadership coaches for executive staff to assist with growth and development in their leadership roles. And we also communicate bi-weekly with central office staff and facility staff. And at this time, I believe we are ready to hear from the Moss Group CEO, Andy Moss.
Can people hear me now? Yes, Kathy, you're saying yes? Okay, great. Thank you, and I'm sorry for that glitch. I've been looking forward to making a couple of comments, but I'm also very aware of saving time for Q&A. The Moss Group is thrilled to be working with New Jersey in this work, and when I say New Jersey, it's everyone on this phone. I think when I have a theory that when you turn 50, you get interested in history. I've been 50 for about 22 years, so the first thing I did was to read about Edna Mahan, not the institution per se, but the person Edna Mahan. And I think we are standing on the shoulders of some pretty creative, heartfelt work that we owe a great respect for. And so I think the Moss Group, if I have to do an elevator speech, I would say that we really partner to help folks move from a fear-based environment to a hope-based environment, one that creates a culture of safety. I think it's important to define culture a little bit, because culture can be like pinning jello to the wall when there's so many things going on. But we think of culture as the norms and the trends in a facility. And if you can just visualize a tree, what you see on the top is really the public presentation of the work. The roots underneath are really where a lot of our work is what are the trends and the norms that you really see on the ground in every aspect of operations and external stakeholders, and what are the realities and how can we be helpful. We are very committed to servant leadership. I want to say that our team is very carefully selected. We have Kathy Kinney, who is former General Counsel for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. You've just heard from Shirley, who has years of operational experience and work with women, and is a real leader in her work. And we have our golden secret in the Moss Group is that we have a strong project management team. And I believe we have two of our project managers on this call, Maggie Black and Jennifer Sheehan. So we do have multiple strategies. That's by design. My own history is I became very committed to this work in 1992 when I was in Georgia Corrections, and we had one of the early lawsuits that received a lot of attention for sexual abuse. And I was asked by the governor and the commissioners to live on prison grounds for a year and oversee the investigation and the strategies. At that time, we didn't have any guidance, no NIC guidance on this issue. It was really like building an expressway in rush hour traffic. I felt at that point I had a very strong moment in my own commitment, is that I had to get the heck out of this crazy profession, or I had to dedicate my work to prevention and also to solutions. And so there's a lot I'd like to say. I've watched the chat and heard the notes, but I think it's important to move on so others have a chance to speak. So I'm very excited about the work. People often ask why we're so involved, but culture work takes time, and it's every aspect of the culture. It's working with the union, it's working with the leadership, it's working with legislators and stakeholders. And if we can work together, then it creates a magical mix. And everybody has their perspective, and that's so important for us to be respectful of. So when you hear about visioning sessions or focus groups or training, it's really to weave that together, and it takes time. And I'm very excited that we are part of this work. I thank the commissioner and her team. And for those of you who early on in the advocacy community gave me some guidance about what your perspectives were. And so I will stop at that. And again, we feel like we're walking somewhat on sacred ground here, because this is doable, but it's only doable if we understand the challenges that we have and we have the transparency. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I think this might have been, as I said, I used to work for the Moss Group as a consultant, and so this might be the first time I'm able to tell Andy to be quiet. So this is pretty exciting. I think we are ready to move into our question and answer session. So you can either chat and I understand there has been some questions come in during the chat. And so maybe we'll start with one of those questions. Liz is going to kind of tell, either answer or read the question from the chat, or you can raise your hand through the Zoom and we will monitor that. Again, I use that word pretty. And if you will tell me, please, who your question is directed to, and then we're going to have the panel members stay at their seats, but they'll take off their masks so that you'll be able to hear them better. Okay?
I think the first question is directed to you, and if you could give the mic so individuals can hear.
Okay.
Are Ms. Purnell's reports to the courts available to the public?
The question was, are my reports to the court available to the public? I'm going to turn to my attorney. I'm assuming they would be. You know, I think you've heard all this morning about transparency, and I certainly would believe that. I have nothing to hide at all. I'm just not sure how they would get them. So Matt or Mike, could you answer that question for me?
Yeah, I would expect those to be on the court's docket.
They would be on the court's docket?
Court's publicly available docket. Yeah.
Court's
once they're filed-
publicly available docket.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Once they're filed with the court, they'll be on the court's docket.
And is there any way that we can put that, like that link or something on the website?
Sure,
Is that okay? Is that,
absolutely.
okay. So what we just decided here, thanks to your question, is that once it's on the court's public docket, we are going to put that link on the NJDOC's website and you'll be able to see it.
The next question is concerning the construction of Edna. So whoever's out to answer that, it's a two-parter. What opportunities will there be for public oversight concerning construction of the new facility? And what ways can, what forms of public approval are necessary in the selection, design, and construction process?
And Commissioner, can you repeat, should she repeat that as well? Okay.
So the first one being, what opportunities will there be for public oversight concerning construction of the new facility? And what forms of public approval are necessary in the selection, design, and construction process?
So the question is, what opportunity is there for public oversight with regard to the development of the new facility? At this point in time, there are the visioning sessions that CGL and Steve Carter is engaging in. There have been opportunities and invitations issued to advocacy groups, public organizations, the Senate, the Assembly, through the Women's Commission. If there are organizations that have an interest in engaging in a visioning session, Liz, I would just ask that they perhaps through the chat provide their information, and we may have the ability to link with CGL and Steve Carter. The second question is, if I understand it correctly, what type of public approval may exist for this selection and the construction of the new facility? I may not be the best person to answer that question. We may not have construction individuals sitting on the panel here today. In terms of public approval, there is, you know, if anyone is living in the state of New Jersey, we know that there are very specific permitting and DPMC and other requirements for construction of facilities. I mean, that may be a question that, Liz, we should circle back with the individual asking the question so that we can get a, you know, a sincere and meaningful response.
When the commissioner says, Liz, what you don't see is the person's doing all the work on the back. And it is of the head of the director, is that of
Yes, of PIO.
communications? So thank you.
Okay, the next question is, okay, sorry. The last question is, where can we find, so individuals really enjoyed the piece of the trauma-informed therapies for survivors and wanted to know where they can find these resources.
Dr. Sessoms, can you take that question?
Sure.
If you go to the Department of Corrections website and click the link for victim services, because all the services I mentioned are offered outside of Aetna and they're offered through our Office of Victim Services, there's information about the programs and there's a contact me. So if you want more.
The question specifically, because they can't hear when you answer the question. Is that right, Liz? So I have to repeat it? We're learning. This is our first time. We're learning. The question specifically was that people really enjoyed knowing about the trauma-informed specifically, and how could they get more information about it? So that was the.
And to that point, also in line with the trauma-informed programs, can you talk about what's been done for staff training?
So the question is, can you talk about what's been done for staff training? And
Helena, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So as Shirley and Andy mentioned, we have, doing gender responsive training for staff. We have all staff received it's the sexual abuse and sexual harassment prevention detection training with a gender informed component. All staff have also received inclusion and understanding training on how to work specifically with special populations, but it was focused on those individuals who are transgender individuals. Shirley, am I missing anything else? We're going and doing the investigations training at the ends of this month. And perhaps if I missed something, Shirley.
No, I would just add that the gender responsive training that's going to be provided to all staff is what the MOS group particularly sees as fundamental to the culture change that needs to take place or to enhance the culture change that's taking place now, is to understand the different pathways that women take to arrive into prison and how that differs and what the treatment for that or the approach for that needs to be. So it's very fundamental, we believe, to laying that foundation for a firm foundation for moving forward and changing and enhancing the culture. And that will be offered to all staff.
Thank you.
Next question. What timeline will the incarcerated people at Edna Mahan be moved to a new facility? It's a two-parter.
So the first question is, and is that specific to those at Stowe that are moving because of the repairs?
It's just to be moved to the facility.
New facility completely. Okay, so the question was, what time frame will the incarcerated persons have notification that they're being moved to the new facility?
Correct. And then the second part is have decarceration or reclassification to lower security facilities been considered in lieu of reincarceration?
I'm gonna, that's a big one to paraphrase, Liz. So let me.
Sure. So are we considering decarceration or reclassification?
Are we considering decarceration or reclassification
To lower security facilities
to lower security facilities
instead of reincarcerating individuals?
See why I needed to repeat that? Who wants to take that?
I can take the timeline
Okay.
question. So let's start with number one. And I believe the question is not with regard to the timeline of having a new facility, but the timeline for notification to those that are currently housed at Edna for moving to a new facility. One of the pieces of one of the many benefits of having launched the pilot program for the groups that we sit with at Edna has been the ability to hear what's really important to them. And, in some cases, it's been more of the daily life pieces, some of the things that AC Tomei had spoken to, what commissary looks like, what undergarments, look like, those pieces. But one of the consistent items that we had heard from those that we meet with are if they're being moved, and whether that's because there's a temporary move or some type of maintenance, or move from one facility to a next, that causes a lot of anxiety for those that are at Edna. They've been there for some time. You know, they also have their items, their personal belongings, and they get settled into a certain area. So we certainly are not looking to re-traumatize anyone by moving to a new or a different facility. We have been very clear with those that we meet with, and, you know, for those at Edna, that there will be significant amount of time. We are going to keep them informed as we move along this process. They will know what's going on, both in terms of short-term and long-term proposals, where we land on those proposals and the next steps. And when it comes time to move, we want to make sure that they have seen what that new facility looks like or the next facility looks like before that move takes place, and that they have more than enough time to determine what they're bringing with them, and, you know, and preparing themselves and us helping them to prepare for that move. So this is not a, you know, a last minute, pack your things, we're moving tomorrow. They are a piece of this plan from the beginning and have been through the visioning sessions, and it will continue to follow that path. Jane, that's the first
good,
question.
you
The
know.
second question.
The second question, as I was thinking about it, is really a lot of legislative, you know, in terms of reclassifying. And so I think that might be better if we capture it and get back with that person, if that's okay. Thank you. Liz?
Sure. So the next one is for Commissioner Kuhn. How do you plan on combating the false abuse of PREA complaints against staff members?
The question is for Commissioner Kuhn, and that is, how do you plan on combating the false allegations? I'm gonna tell you my perception first before I turn it over. Isn't this so much fun to have this kind of power? Please know that that is a very, very consistent theme that we've heard in the last week from both staff and inmates. This weaponizing of PREA, the use of PREA as a verb. I'm going to PREA you. And I think it's important to recognize that that has been a trend we have seen in other states throughout the United States when this kind of agreement happens, and the focus is so much on the protection of the incarcerated women or persons, as it should be. And so the balance is always, what are those allegations that are true? And how do we take them so seriously? And how do we investigate them? Versus what are those ones that are absolutely false? And the way when we say absolutely false, those are the examples when, in my instance, I can say, I remember a case that the woman made an allegation about a staff member who wasn't even working that day. I mean, it was that blatant. And there are truly, and I will be honest and tell you that I'm going to talk about this in my report, because that's a challenge. And the report talks about strengths and challenges. And I will tell you the two ways that I'm aware, and certainly Andy and Shirley can speak to that as well, or anybody who has gone through this experience working with, with incarcerated persons and sexual safety. The two main ways are, first off, it has to stop working. So the women use it primarily for either getting staff out of their housing unit, or quite honestly, so those staff are the ones oftentimes that are holding the women accountable. And so they will literally know that we have to separate the victim from the alleged perpetrator. And often that means reassigning staff. That has to stop working for them before they start doing false allegations. So the best way for that to stop working for them is to do those investigations as quickly and as timely as possible. We were very happy to see all the body-worn cameras and the stationary cameras that Commissioner Kuhn talked about today. We think those are great tools that investigations can use immediately to see, is this was the person even in the area. And so we've talked to Commissioner Daniels. We're so happy that she's part of the team. We see some real dramatic changes in terms of getting those investigations done quickly. And so that's the first way. The second way, quite honestly, is to hold those false allegations, those persons responsible who make those false allegations. And that's a little trickier because, again, the balance is we don't want to discourage. I mean, you have the Department of Justice in the room. You have the federal monitor telling you that we don't want to discourage people from reporting. And we want those reports to be sincere. We had one inmate victim this week tell us that it felt like she was being re-traumatized when so many other false allegations were happening, and that she felt like she's being discounted. So the balance for that is those cases that are absolutely, truly unfounded by the kind of evidence that I've shared with you in my case, then the incarcerated people have to be held accountable for those false allegations. And those are the true, and again, I'm going to include that in my report, and those are the two ways. I took a lot of time. I maybe.
Edna Mahan is on the line. I'd like to find in on.
Sure, great. Please, Andy.
That was a great explanation. I think, Jane, Kathy, can you raise your hand if I've heard? Okay, great. The key here is what we're all trying to do is create a reporting environment, a reporting culture that makes sure that people who are truly victimized and have issues can report. And so one of our experience through the years in working on this is that to the degree a facility has disorder and the women don't have other ways to deal with issues, PREA gets overused and weaponized. And so, which is horribly unfortunate for people who really need to report. But when you try to get to the root of it, often it's because the grievance process, the disciplinary process, the relationships with the women, with each other, with staff, are part of the disorder. And so creating a reporting environment includes addressing all of those issues. And so it's not true in every case that we've been in, but I easily drew a diagram when I was working with this in one facility, and the other processes for women to engage and get needed response on other issues that are unrelated. To the degree that that was possible or not possible, the PREA abusiveness really was pretty correlated. So I would just say, as we're working on multiple issues in the culture, everything comes together, everything's connected, it's very interrelated. So thank you, and good explanation, Jane.
Yeah. The other thing, if it's encouraging, if there's, again, light at the end of the tunnel, my experience was that the false allegations went way high and then they calm down and the pendulum kind of comes back to the middle. So it doesn't feel good right now when you're going through that. And I certainly understand for both staff and inmates, the strong concern around that issue.
Yeah, so I think you kind of touched on this a lot in that answer, but we did get a question regarding how will the changing of the facility, the physical facility, kind of impact that cultural shift. So, building. So how does that work? So I don't know if we want to go deeper into that or.
I can take that, please. So the question is, constructing a new facility is just a new facility. What else do you do to change the culture? And that's exactly why we brought everyone together today. That was one of the comments that I made earlier. Facility relocation is fantastic, but there are so many other components that go into changing the culture. Making the experience better for both those that are incarcerated currently at Edna and the staff, and reinvesting in both sides of that house. It is all things programming and vocational training, women's services, training for staff. And I keep looking at Liz because the question is coming for her. It is all of those components. The physical facility is what may house us more comfortably, but all of those components are the critical components to be able to making that change.
Nicely said. I'm trying to be sensitive to time. And I'm seeing that we have 8 minutes left and we do want to leave some time at the end for Commissioner Kuhn. So maybe if we can take two more, we'll take two more questions. Commissioner Kuhn is going to tell you that if the session stops, the questions don't. And she'll explain that process to you, but let's take two more.
Sure. So you mentioned a new board of trustees for Edna. What will be their responsibilities? What powers to make change will they have?
So the question is the new Board of Trustees for Edna and what will be their responsibilities and what power of authority? And again, I'll probably defer.
Please do, please do. Whomever asked that question, I absolutely love that question. This is an amazing board. I am excited for all of you actually. Hopefully when we get together the next time, and there will be another time to do this, you will have an opportunity to meet the board at that time. I think I mentioned earlier, they come from very different facets. They are so excited to join us as well. They have very powerful voices. And in terms of what their abilities are going to be with Edna, with those that are currently housed at Edna, the expectation is they're going to come on board and partner with us with so many different areas. They have the ability to guide subcommittees, and whether those subcommittees are listening to the women and from a medical standpoint and, working with our medical teams, there may be reentry interests, there may be training interests, club and activities, all of those areas that we are focusing on in the department. The individuals that are on the Board of Trustees bring very different talent to the board, and they're there for very specific reasons, both collectively but individually. So the expectation is we will have different subcommittees formed by those that are on the Board of Trustees. The subcommittees will have an opportunity to meet with staff and meet with the population and meet with the executive staff and meet with those that are sitting here on this panel regularly, and really start to work with us, have, extra sets of eyes and ears at the facility and partner with us. Ultimately, it's a partnership, and we're looking for their fresh ideas.
So last question.
Last question.
All right, the last question is, are former inmates who experienced sexual assault and harassment before 2014 eligible to be part of the settlement if they filed in a timely manner?
So I'm going to really defer to my attorneys. And as I understand it, in my non-legal, totally naive way, and the only way I really figured this out was yesterday or this last week when I was walking around and I was saying that I was the federal monitor for the settlement agreement. A couple women asked when they were going to get their checks. And I kind of felt like, was I supposed to write them or something? I mean, and what I understand, and again, please, I'm turning to Matthew and Mike, there are really two different settlements. There was a class action filed by the women, and that truly has nothing to do with the civil settlement agreement that I am the federal monitor for. And so we have no idea. I mean, I don't know about the class action. We do.
Commissioner Hale.
Please, thank you.
Yes, you're correct. They are two separate issues. And with regard to the class action, that period has closed, and they are dispersing the settlements and the tier one sort of for anyone who was in the facility during that class action period. That process has begun.
Okay.
So that is separate and apart from this, but that matter.
I'm so glad to hear that because I thought it was coming out of my paycheck. I was like, oh, no. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited again to be here to work with this incredible team. And I look forward to seeing you all again, maybe in the fall.
Absolutely.
Commissioner.
Absolutely. Thank you. I echo what you said, Jane. I'm also excited to be here. We want to sincerely thank everyone for joining us this morning. I understand that we will have the opportunity, am I right, Jane, to do this again, likely early fall, certainly no later than October.
Yes.
We appreciate your insight this morning. We appreciate your input. We appreciate your questions. We do hope that you've gained some insight as well on what we're working on, what we envision for Edna, the current vision for Edna, where we are, where we're going. We have much work to do. I began the discussion this morning with community. I'd like to end there as well. And that's building the corrections community is truly essential to our success. I see folks nodding their head up here. It's true. We believe the same thing. We look forward to strengthening our partnerships as we look ahead to the plans for facility closures, continuing to develop and launch new activities and clubs and incentive programs, enhancing the vocational offerings that you heard about this morning, turning our attention to new initiatives, whether that's housing, honor housing, reunification efforts. We hear from some, about interest in Mommy and Me. These are things that we look forward to. This is exciting for us to be able to talk about for our more immediate future. Enhancing the reintegration efforts that you've heard about this morning, building relationships with the 20+ partners that we currently have and building more, helping to ensure a smooth transition into society for those that are leaving us from Edna, continuing to invest in our staff, in their training, in their wellness, in our recruitment efforts. We look forward to the report that Ms. Parnell would be issuing. All of these things collectively are helping us build the better program at Edna. I do understand that we are going to keep, and I'm looking at all the folks that are helping lead us through this morning, we're going to keep both the Slido app as well as the chat open for the next 30 minutes. Am I accurate for both of those pieces? I'm sorry, I totally misspoke. We're going to keep the Slido app open.
CRS code that could be found on the meeting invite that's on our social media pages as well as our website.
I know.
That was a mouthful. If I understand it correctly. And forgive me, we're going to keep the Slido app open for the next 30 minutes. You would just scan the QR code that was located on the invitation. I think it's also located on our website, if I understand that correctly. And then we'll be able to respond to those questions as we receive them. And
Commissioner, I also just got message that there was a lot of chats we didn't get to. And so can we just assure those people who ask those questions that we can at least respond back to them?
absolutely, absolutely. Any questions that we received through the app, as well as during the chat, all of those will be compiled and you will receive responses. We understand that there was a limited period of time.
Stay on while we collect our emails.
Okay, and we're being asked if you would just stay on so that we're able to collect email addresses for everyone. So again, on behalf of everyone that's joining us this morning, on behalf of the team, I personally would like to thank all of you for allowing us to provide all of you with updates this morning. So I ask that you please join us the next time around. Take care, stay safe, and thank you for all that you do. And thank you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you.